Good evening all, and welcome to our first inaugural RCPsych Southeastern Division Awards. So before I hand over to our speakers for tonight, we would just like to go through a few points of housekeeping. So we won't be using the chat box for any Q's and A's because it is an awards ceremony, but you can of course use the chat box to congratulate winners should you want to. And if you have any technical issues, we have our regular experts, so Karen Morgan and Chesney Monrose, who are both in the participant list. You can message them and hopefully they'll be able to help. The ceremony is going to be recorded and it's going to be sent out to everyone who registered for the event. It'll also be available on the Southeast Division webpage. After the event, it'll be available for about 2 weeks. We'll try and put this up as soon as we can. In order to best see the event, we recommend that you switch your camera onto speaker view. So there is a little drop-down link in the top right-hand corner if anyone's unfamiliar with Zoom, and you'll basically have a better experience of the awards. And for those on Twitter, we really encourage you to tweet the event to try and get this to be something that keeps going. And so we have a hashtag for tonight, which is hashtag RCPsych SE Awards, and I've just put that in the chat as well. So I'm now going to hand you over to the very wonderful and capable hands of Professor Subodh.
Thanks a lot. Well, welcome everyone. I do have some slides to share, and Chiara, the chair, I think we just learned that that's a little auto text correct, which works both ways. So will stop me if she thinks I'm going over time. But I'll talk for about 20 minutes and it's quite interactive. So did you say people can post stuff in the chat or they can't really post anything in the chat?
Yes, I mean, people are very, very welcome to. It's just we won't be monitoring it per se.
Okay, well, no, that's fine, fair enough. So, I'm happy to take questions at the end, as it were, if there are any, or indeed have a discussion. So I thought it might be useful. I mean, it's strange. It's almost a year now. I think it's coming up to a year that I've been dean. So I think in June this year, it will be a year. So I know it's not quite there, but in my head, it almost feels like it's been a year. And so it's probably a good time for me to try and give some kind of a rounding up of what I've achieved so far. And so I thought it'll be good to give that update. And you are the first group of people I'm giving that update to. So I look forward to hearing your comments about that. But let me first of all start by saying thank you to all of you. I know it's been a tough period in many ways, tough couple of years. None of us expected to live the kind of life that we've had to live through COVID, and then now there are even more weird events unfolding over our screens. So the fact that you've all been working hard through that phase is incredible, and so big thank you to all of you on my personal behalf, but also from the college. So fundamentally, I think I hope that all of you, well, at least those of you who are eligible to vote, did participate in the elections. Basically, my key theme for my election hustings was that of addressing patient outcomes, that we really need to address health inequalities and have a more scientific view of psychiatry. And I think I'll outline those priorities in a minute. But underpinning that, all of that is the central idea that I think is reflected in this slide. So I don't know how many of you read Good Medical Practice or Good Psychiatric Practice. I'm laughing because Chiara is working with the GMC, so she's probably done a PhD on it right now. But even the good medical practice is very much about the doctor-patient relationship, and good psychiatric practice, which is kind of a reflection of good medical practice in the psychiatric world, is also the same. And good psychiatric practice coming up for revision. And for me, I think that's a good time for us to start thinking about, well, what does our role as psychiatrists mean? I mean, of course, when we are trained in the medical model, I think medical schools started in 1910, and I don't feel that they've really changed their model even until now in 2022. We kind of look at an individual patient, and we study pathology, we study the etiology of that pathology, we try and then investigate and assess to arrive at a diagnosis, and then we treat. And then that is the kind of broad model. And I think in doing so, we've kind of sometimes forgotten the wider aspects of our care. And I think certainly while we are very much responsible for the care of our individual patient, I think we also have a responsibility for the care of the communities that we practice in. And so that's a subtle but a significant shift. And now that the weight of population health and the evidence and the science behind it is kind of with us, I think it's high time that we made that shift and adopted that in our practice. So that is the fundamental shift that I'm asking. This is overarching vision for me, then as a dean, as your dean, is that, well, how can we make sure that our education and training offer is directly influencing patient outcomes? And I think that is a trite thing to say, that you of course want all of our education and training to be relevant to patient care. I'm not sure that it always is so, and so hence my 4 priorities, and I'll talk about them, each one of them in detail. But the very first one I think is really quite important, because what better way to stress test our education and training offer than to see how effective it is in addressing the weakest link. And the weakest link for me is where health inequalities reside. So we know that there are sections of our population that are being left behind in terms of their health outcomes. And if our education and training offer is not bridging those gaps, is not addressing the health outcomes for the population that are left behind, then we need to fix that. And that's my job to fix it, I think, and I take responsibility for that. However, identifying those weak links is where I need your help. And so I want you all to tell me where do you think, which are the sections of the population that are being left behind. Some of them we know about, but some of them will be unique to your areas. And I think that's where, if you tell me that, well, this is where things are being left behind, what is our training offer? How do we upskill our workforce to start bridging those gaps? And then, so that's broadly my vision. So practically, what does this mean? Practically, it means the slide. I mean, we've known this finding for at least 25 years now, that people with severe mental illness are dying 2 decades younger. Do we feel, hand on our heart, that our training and education has made a difference to the life expectancy of our patients? And if it hasn't, then I think we should, each one of us in this room today should be asking the question, why has it not? Where is it not working? Where do the problems lie? Now, I know health systems are complex, and there are complicated reasons. And, I think we will say that when we put up, we are using the Leicester tool, or we've got now clinics set up, or we've got shared care agreements with GPs, etc. I feel we need to be a bit more bold. We need to be thinking about this slide. So, when you look at this slide, you can see that this slide says only 5% of people present with mental illness alone. Now, even if you think that this is an outlier figure, I'm sure that each one of you in this room would probably say that only about 15 to 20% of people max present with mental illness alone. The vast majority have either a chronic physical condition or a chronic substance misuse problem. So for my challenge is it heretical now to kind of ask, what should we be able to do through our education training offer to address these needs of the patients who come and present to us with these common comorbidities? Should we know how to prescribe nicotine replacement products? Should we know how to do smoking cessation? Should we know how to do motivational interviewing? Should we know when and when not to offer carbon monoxide meter? Things like that. Should we be able to manage and start treatment for diabetes, manage, hypertension? What is the level of I think clearly GMC asks us to practice within the limits of our competence. Where should that limit of our competence be? How do we draw that line? And is it time to relook at where that line should be drawn? And that's a debate. And I'm not suggesting any answers here, but certainly I'm posing a question, and I'd really be keen to hear from people as to how do we start solving this problem? What's not okay is for our patients to die 2 decades younger. That's definitely not okay. And again, this slide, this is what it means in practice. Now, the science behind adverse childhood experiences is really very strong. We know that if you have 4 or more ACEs, then the risk of a host of physical and mental health increases dramatically. You're 10 times more likely to have self-harm, 10 times more likely to, substance misuse problems, 4 times more likely to have cancer, 2 times more likely to have cardiovascular problems. I could go on. I mean, the slide kind of says it all. And yet, I mean, and again, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but I mean, I myself, as an adult psychiatrist, did I do enough to look at the ACEs that my patient's children were experiencing because of the chronic mental illness that their parents were suffering from? I don't think I did. And I think we need to ask the question that if we have scientific evidence behind us, how are we using that to inform our formulations? How are we using that to inform our treatment plans? And so you can see that when I'm talking of addressing health inequalities, I'm asking you to go beyond what probably many of us end up thinking. So many of us probably think of ethnicity and gender and other protected characteristics, and they are very important. But it's also important that we are able to speak up for all our patients, because we also know that our patients get poorer care when they go to acute hospitals, purely by the fact that they have mental illness. Our patients get poorer options when they enter the employment market. And I think if we don't speak up for our patients, who will? So I think clearly we need to address this absolute finding that African Caribbean people are far more likely to enter the healthcare system through the legal routes, so not very commonly coming through the GP route, or coming through section 136 or 135 or section 2.3. And we definitely need to change that. But the problem is bigger, and we need to now think of the overall impact of addressing health inequalities. So back to the link. So for me, I think when I talk of addressing the weakest link, it really is also creating that more explicit link in education practice. And which means that, on the one hand, we've in this country really enjoyed the heavy investment in education. We have a fantastic educational structure. And I think across the world, whenever I go, people really feel that the British healthcare education system and psychiatric training in the UK is very, very good. And I'm talking about people who migrated from UK to Canada, to Australia, to other parts of the world. And they all say that. So that is fantastic. And we don't want to lose that. But equally, we want that to come closer to the clinical world, so that the clinical world and educational world are a little bit more aligned together. We want our trainees to learn from serious incidents that are happening in their training placements. We want our trainees to be aware of what are the key issues that are facing medical directors in the trust that they are doing their placement in. And so back to my priorities. So these are the 4 priorities that I started with, and I'll now try and give you a brief update on what are we doing. So addressing health inequalities, we put this squarely in our curriculum. I don't know how many of you had a look at the curricula. The new curricula are being piloted now. So those of you who started in February, I just did the new, CTs, welcomed them. They all will be following this curriculum. And then we've got these 2 pillars to address health inequality. So the one hand is public mental health, and the second is person-centered care. So on the one hand, a clear focus that you've got to think not just about your patients, not just case-based discussion, but also case load-based discussion, to think of the impact of those issues on the wider community. But also, how do you apply research evidence, from NICE guidelines and other guidelines that are based on population-based evidence? How do you apply that to individuals? How do you personalize the care that you offer to individuals? And so these twin elements, I think, are quite key. And so have a look. I mean, I won't bore you through details. I'm going to skip over some of these slides, but you can see that the amount of detail we've put in our curriculum in terms of addressing these issues. So health promotion and illness prevention in community settings is one of the higher level outcomes. And then beneath that sits things like, how do you know and understand systemic and structural inequalities, the role of intersectionality, how do you kind of use this, and then how do you understand the impact of it, not just on patient outcomes, but also on your working relationship with colleagues. A better understanding of the social determinants of health, understanding of the power imbalance that exists between doctors and patients, things that we probably have not really talked about very explicitly. Now, clearly putting all this in the curriculum is not going to suddenly magically translate into this learning being internalized. So the challenge now that lies before all of you as educators and trainers and trainees is, how do we bring this to life? How do we make this happen? How do we understand how protective characteristics impact on clinical presentation. How do we use this knowledge then to inform and improve our practice? So in order to make a start, I approached HEE. We wrote a bid for a grant, and then we've got a grant to appoint a health inequalities fellow that will hopefully start in August 22. We haven't advertised for it yet, so look out for the advertisement. That will come out fairly soon. It will be a 1-year fellowship, and it comes with a supervisor time built in. So there will also be an advertisement for a TPD level supervisor at 2 PAs. So it's a fair amount of time that we're investing in this. And their task will be 2 things. One is to run 2 pilots in 2 deaneries, and think about, well, what kind of, how do we bring this curriculum to life? So we've got the curriculum, how do we bring it to life? But also support our RCPsych course gap analysis. So to look at the RCPsych courses across the country, and hopefully some of you in the region are already looking at your own courses to see, we've got the new curriculum now, how are the courses delivering the curriculum? Where are the gaps? What are the gaps that absolutely need to be filled in? And then one of the gaps that I can tell you, which I think is from my experience, is in how well is lived experience woven into our training programs. And I think that it's very variable and patchy across the country. And I'd certainly like to see that woven a bit more in detail. So my second slide is around, my second priority is around making training meaningful, personally and professionally. And I'm really a great believer in this. I feel that, you know, all of us have slightly different motivations. We all are not equal. And I think our individualized learning agreements should reflect that. And then so the kind of CPD that we require, the kind of training path that we will go on will vary, just ever so slightly maybe. But I think the more individualized we can make our training offer, the more relevant people will find it to their own personal and professional life. So as a part of that, what we've started is we've started mapping all our CPD offers that we already have. So whatever material that we have, so that we can actually then link it together and offer it in a way that actually enables people to skill themselves up. So upskilling the workforce is one of my key priorities. So as a part of that, we've obtained again some money from HE to start a credentialing process in eating disorders. And it's good news. I mean, we have 30 places and it looks like there's a heavy interest for this credential. We've already had 60 applicants. So we'll actually probably have to have interviews to try and get people in. So that's one win this year. I'm setting up a digital literacy task and finish group. I think in the COVID period, we've all seen that New York Times ran this headline, you know, very early on to say that 10 years of progress achieved in 2 weeks by NHS. And I think if that was true in May 2020, you can imagine what's happening now. I think we are doing many more interviews online. We are doing a lot of team meetings online. And I think we need to make sure that our workforce, and that includes our trainees, are well equipped to understand what does it mean to take a good digital history? What does it mean to do a mental state examination online? What are the changes that we need to do and be aware of? You know, critical appraisal of digital apps. Our patients are using them. Do we know how to appraise them critically? And I think it's important that we do know how do we extract meaningful data from our electronic patient records so that that influences our patient outcomes. So hopefully early next year, you should see the output of this group, which is due to meet, in fact, tomorrow, I think, you know, tomorrow is the first meeting. We're also working, I just had to come out from a meeting about an international diploma. We'll be launching it later this year. This is the first, our diploma. We haven't decided which subject area it will be, but as a charity, we at the college are committed to improving the global workforce shortage in mental health. We know that there's you know, the shortage in mental health broadly is 1 million. The shortage in subspecialty areas of psychiatry is massive. And I feel that the college can play a big role in improving and addressing this gap. And so our ambition is to try and provide that subspecialty training to people across the world. The model we have is quite simple. We will be charging a market rate to a proportion of our trainees so that we can offer bursaries to people who can't afford it and then from areas of need. Basically, we want all the subspecialties. You know, there are sections of the world where there is no child psychiatry service, there's no parental psychiatry service, there's no neuropsychiatry service. And I feel that we can play a role in making sure that those specialist inputs are available to populations where our members are across the world. 20% of our membership is international, as you would know. And as part of this Making Training Meaningful, some of you may have seen the certificate RCPsych courses that we just launched. Please Google it. Our first offer is in the area of autism and neurodevelopmental disorders and the criminal justice system. But that is just the first of our offers. I think many more such certificate courses will come up, again, targeted to areas where we know there's a clinical need and where there's a need to upskill the workforce. So again, if you feel there are any thoughts and ideas that you may have for content, do get in touch. These are multidisciplinary and multi-specialist, so they'll be open to your GP colleagues and maybe emergency medicine colleagues and your ACP and PA colleagues as well as the psychiatrists. So this is my next priority, and I think this is really about strengthening our identity as psychiatrists. And it's interesting, I think, some people tell, maybe it's a mistake. And quite often people write to me and they refer to our college as Royal College of Psychiatry or Royal College of Mental Health even at times. And, what's in a name? And I think, you shouldn't argue, but I do feel quite strongly about our identity as psychiatrists. I think as a psychiatrist, we train in a particular way. We have trained in medicine. And, I think we also, as psychiatrists, have trained in psychosocial sciences. And I think it really is us as a profession who can bring in that integrated model of that psychobiosocial formulation, more so than any other member of our multidisciplinary team. So each member of the team is important, but having that integrated oversight is something unique to us. And I think we should be proud of it, and I think we should really celebrate it. But equally, we must make sure that we are skilled at it. And so, psychotherapeutic skills are absolutely important. The ability to form those therapeutic relationships. We can't subcontract it to our psychology colleagues. This is something that we also must possess and have. We can't say that social prescribing will be done by social prescribers and that I need to know nothing about that. That can't happen. The psychobiosocial formulations and that the treatment plans that come from that has to be our province. And so to bring that into practice, I have launched these grand rounds. They should be starting later in spring. We've got 8 such grand rounds happening. And essentially, the focus will be on narrowing that gap between evidence and practice. We know that the gap is as long as 15 to 20 years, even where we know the evidence is very solid. It takes almost 20 years for it to filter through practice. That is not fair to our patients. We need to narrow that gap. We need to bring in that academic evidence into practice sooner. And so all of the grand rounds will follow a simple formula. They will be co-hosted by the faculty and division. The faculty and division will provide a clinical problem that they feel where there is a gap between the evidence and practice. And that gap will be brought to life by the lived experience of either an individual or a community organization. So that's the first element. The second element will be the presentation of the academic evidence by the faculty and division. The third element, quite crucially, is the contextual data. So what does it mean, not just for that individual? What does it mean for the wider health economy? What does it mean for the system? In morbidity terms, in mortality terms, in terms of the costs, financial or otherwise, to the health economy. And then what are the data sets that tell us, that inform us, and how do we become skilled as clinicians in reading those data sets and interpreting those data sets? And then finally, I have laid on some QI coaches, quality improvement coaches from the college, who will support the presenters of that grand round for 6 months in a project, time-limited project, quality improvement project that will hopefully start narrowing and start denting that gap between evidence and practice. So look out for that. I'm not sure the Southeastern Division has signed up yet, but if they haven't, I hope that they will. We have 4 pairs formed already. So I know that West Midlands has paired up with addiction faculty, South West has paired up with intellectual disability, Northwest and old age have paired up, Northeast and old age have paired up, and there's one more which I forget. So I look forward to hearing from you as to where are you at Southeastern Division. And then the next one is the national quiz. Again, hope you all have received information from Aidan's newsletter, but Google it, it's on our web pages now. We do a serious job, and learning is important, but learning need not be boring. It needs to be fun. And to celebrate the wide and diverse and the exciting science that we are, This quiz will be basically, following the lines of University Challenge. It's an inter-nations, inter-division quiz. So I'm hoping the Southeast Division has already started working on its team of 4. Has to be made up of at least 2 trainees or SAS doctors or medical students. And so team of 4. The heats are all at the Congress in person. And the finals will be held at the college in November. So look out for it, and I'm sure it'll be a fun event. And finally, the workforce. So what are we doing? We are developed we've got some money to run a pilot ID run-through program, which will start in August this year. We've got 9 trainees who will be a part of this run-through program. And as a part of that run-through program, we will try and support them in developing their identity as ID psychiatrists, right from core training. So from core training onwards, they will be attending faculty meetings, faculty conferences. They will be supervised, and there will be events to meet the specialists from neuropsychiatry faculty, etc. at the college. So for those 9 trainees, we'll try and develop that fellowship feeling. And I hope that becomes a model for our future training programs. As you all may have heard, we have 140 new training posts made available this year from August 22, which is great news. That's 140 new trainees, 140 new bumps on seats, as it were, which not only means an improvement in the future workforce, but also means that these are new, bodies on the ground who will be working from day one as CT1. So that's fantastic news. We are developing a new retention strategy. I've started a network of directors of medical education, so I'm not sure there are any DMEs in the room today, but if not, do tell your DMEs to, if they're not already in there, to join that meeting. This is a meeting that I co-chair with 2 other DMEs, and it's a direct link for all the directors of medical education with the college, so that we can support our local education providers in doing the best for their trainees and trainers, but also for themselves. I want DMEs to feel empowered so that they can go to their medical directors, they can go to their local health economies with solutions, not just with problems. And finally, I think something that trainees will be interested in, that assessment strategy. I inherited this issue that, post-COVID, we obviously had to, intra-COVID, we had to go and shift our exams online, which was a phenomenal piece of achievement on the part of Kate, who was the dean, and Ian Hall, who is the chief examiner. In record time, they moved the exam from face-to-face to online. And when you look across the world, there are many trainees in the world who are languishing behind and then the workforce progression has halted. That didn't happen in the UK, thanks to their efforts. But now we have to make a decision whether we stay online or whether we go back face-to-face. That's one decision. But for me, I think it's also important that our exams are fit for purpose, not just from a reliability point of view, but also from a validity point of view. We have to make sure that our trainees have the right knowledge, right skills, right attitudes, and that we assess what we can assess in CASC exam, paper A, paper B, but we also have clarity of what are we assessing during our workplace and how do we strengthen our workplace assessments. And another piece of that we're trying to address through our assessment strategy is differential attainment. We all know that certain groups, international medical graduates, UK graduates of non-white ethnicity, they all fare, their performance in exams is not as good as their equivalent peers who are either UK graduates or are UK graduates from white ethnicity. We need to try and address that gap. So we're looking into that as well. So a whole lot of things happening here. You can see that we will be starting our stakeholder engagement process very soon. Look out for that. Certainly you can contribute through the PTC, or if you're a trainer, you will be contributing through the examiners engagement events, or through the engagement events through your DME network or through heads of school. So there'll be multiple avenues available to you to engage with us. And finally, get in touch. And today is a day of celebration. I'm glad to see that these awards evening are happening. I think we absolutely need to celebrate the great and the good. I hope that you see the college as as just that we need to have the collegiate feeling amongst all of us, and we feel a part of a group that shares common values and has common goals. And I'm just so thankful that you invited me here today to be part of that. So thank you again. And I will stop sharing my slides there.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Dave, for joining us. And there are so many opportunities in that. It's kind of hard to keep track of all the different ways in which psychiatry can thrive. And I think there's a real future for innovation and development, and particularly the health inequalities. There's a lot to do, but also a lot of opportunities in needing to do it. So getting on to our awards. In the past year, we've had a wonderful team come together to try and celebrate the passion, creativity, and exceptional practice of the best that our region has to offer, of which many of you are in this room, and to foster precisely that innovation and patient-centered care in service of our communities. It's been a hard year, as Professor Dave touched on, and so many different ways. And amongst these times, a lot of people have sought ways to work differently, whether supporting others in community or providing education to future generations of clinical staff, developing research to ensure that our work achieves the greatest outcomes possible for our patients, or simply in these times, just keeping going and working on the ground to provide that direct care. In that sense, everyone here tonight has lived and worked under that pressure, and it's an achievement that we all must note. Throughout all of these categories, the quality of applications was staggering and a real testament to the Southeast. So with no further delays, let's introduce our first category. So our first category is Foundation Doctor of the Year. This award is given to a foundation doctor who's demonstrated in their clinical practice and performance an exceptional level of achievement and a passion for the field of psychiatry. These applications were of an amazing standard, and particularly given the pressures of diving into clinical practice during a pandemic, each application demonstrated the real dedication and skill of these junior clinicians stepping into our field. We have 3 finalists in this category. In alphabetical order, our finalists are Dr. Alex O. Dr. O is a foundation doctor based in Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells Hospital Foundation Programme, who completed a split post working within a specialist perinatal mental health community team and an inpatient ward, itself a challenging task. He demonstrated exceptional initiative, great personal and professional development, and compassion and respect in his interactions with patients and staff. He was an educator amongst his colleagues, a representative of his peers, and engaged in research and quality improvement to leave behind a legacy of improved structures for his subsequent peers to inherit. Then Dr. Kieran Kelsey. So Dr. Kelsey joined the Oxford Foundation School following his appointment to the RCPsych Foundation Fellowship. She has worked tirelessly to develop her passion for psychiatry further, demonstrating her skill and motivation in research, education, and clinical practice. She was particularly commended in her application for her compassionate care of patients, bringing together interdisciplinary staff and specialists and serving as a true advocate. She developed skills far beyond the requirement of a foundation doctor in this short time, and we very much hope that she'll remain an asset to our field for years to come. And finally, Dr. Annika Tomlinson. Dr. Tomlinson is also a foundation doctor within the Oxford Foundation School and demonstrated exceptional achievements across research, education, leadership, and clinical practice. Amongst other achievements, she established physical health clinics within an acute inpatient ward setting, taught research and clinical skills to fellow staff and students, and dedicated additional time throughout her training to trials for the COVID-19 vaccine. She demonstrated impressive dedication to research activity in particular, developing clinical decision tools and ensuring the patient voice was heard throughout all of these research activities. Despite the pandemic pressures evident on all junior staff, she continued to ensure that psychiatric research and care remains a priority for the future. The award of Southeastern Division Foundation Doctor of the Year goes to Dr. Annika Tomlinson of Oxford Foundation School.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Gosh.
Many congratulations.
Thank you.
This is when we'd all love to be in person, but so be it. Many congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you to the Royal College as well, and to my mentors, especially Professor Cipriani, who nominated me for this.
Well, we very much hope that you'll dive into psychiatry and stick around. I'm going to pass over to Sophie now for our next award.
Thank you, Chiara. So the next award up tonight is the Core Trainee of the Year. The judges were really impressed by all of the applications in this category, and the impassioned writing by some of the trainers describing their trainees' contribution to care was really quite heartwarming. I was astounded by just how dedicated and adept so many of these core trainees are, particularly when they're often grappling with a new specialty, exams, frequent job changes, and not to mention the pressures of starting core training in a pandemic. So in alphabetical order, our finalists in the category are Dr. Amy Konicki. Dr. Konicki is an ST3 academic clinical fellow in old age psychiatry working in Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust. She is clearly a highly valued colleague, as testified by peers, consultants, nursing colleagues, and HR. She combines a busy academic post with her clinical work, and has also found the time to help organise a trainee wellbeing conference for her trust. And she was nominated by the trust HR team for an award for her hard work improving working conditions for her colleagues as junior doctor representative. Dr. Konicki's previous clinical supervisor wrote a specific commendation of her clinical work, stating it to be far in excess of that which he would expect of a core trainee. Her research sounds fascinating and sent me personally down a PubMed rabbit hole. She's the study coordinator and lead sub-investigator for an observational study looking into biomarkers of gut microbiome associated phenotypes and the link to healthy aging and neurodegenerative disease. I'm amazed how much Dr. Konicki's managed to do in all this in her 3 years of core training. So many congratulations. Our second finalist is Dr. Beth McCausland. Dr. McCausland is also an academic ST3 in old age psychiatry in Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust. Dr. McCausland's research has contributed to the nationwide coronerve study, as she's been studying the permeability of the blood-brain barrier in Alzheimer's disease. Dr. McCausland's research has been presented at esteemed RCPsych conferences, including presenting a poster at the International Congress in 2021 about staff confidence in recognising and managing domestic abuse in a CMHT, which has led to an ongoing project about domestic abuse in her trust. Dr. McCausland's communication skills and professionalism were highlighted in her application as being particularly strong when dealing with patients and colleagues alike. Dr. McCausland is passionate about widening access to research and has organised monthly academic breakfast meetings, coordinating clinical and academic colleagues and arranging a programme of interesting speakers. Dr. McCausland excels at teaching and has taught a range of topics to medical students, nursing students, and foundation doctors. Our third finalist in the category is Dr. Hannah Wieringa. Dr. Wieringa's nomination really drew out what a compassionate and holistic doctor she is, with examples of how she's gone above and beyond to ensure the best possible care for individual patients. She is passionate about quality improvement, evidenced by her long-standing work on STOMP, which is stopping overprescribing medication for people with learning disability, which has also been an opportunity for her to hone her leadership skills. A couple of sentences in the application really stood out for me. It said, her enthusiasm for her work is an inspiration to those around her, and as a team member, Hannah is invariably reliable, communicating with thoughtful clarity and proactively being supportive of the team enterprise, including at times of very acute clinical intensity. I'm sure you'll all agree that to receive such a commendation so early in a career is quite unusual. So the overall winner of the South Eastern Division Core Trainee of the Year 2022 goes to Dr. Hannah Wieringa of Hertfordshire University Partnership NHS Trust. Well done, Hannah.
Thank you very much. It's completely unexpected, but thank you very much. And thank you very much to Raj as well, who nominated me and who was, an incredible supervisor, so encouraging and supportive. And thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to the next category now. So our next category is the Higher Trainee of the Year. And we received some excellent awards for the Hire Trainee of the Year category, and we're astounded as judges by just how many extra projects hire trainees are managing to fit in on top of their training. We were really impressed by the high number of trainee designed and led projects, which suggests that we have some really excellent future medical leaders in training in the division. In alphabetical order, our finalists in this category are as follows. Firstly, Dr. Claire G. Dr. Claire G is an ST4 in old age psychiatry working in Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust. Dr. G has been responsible for recovering dementia research in the Trust after the pandemic. She was lauded in her nomination for her calm and collected manner, her enthusiasm for learning, and her commitment to her patients. She's been selected as the Trust's first ever NIHR Clinical Research Network Fellow in Older Persons' Mental Health, which she's managed alongside her clinical work, her research commitments, and work towards a degree in clinical neurosciences. I was intrigued to read that she even managed to spontaneously promote dementia research while being filmed open water swimming for a Chris Packham BBC documentary. Obviously a sign of great commitment to her specialty. So well done, Claire. Our next finalist in this category is Dr. Shah Tarfarosh. Dr. Tarfarosh is an ST4 in Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust. Dr. Tarfarosh was commended in his nomination for the remarkable amount of educational work, innovation, and leadership he has sustained alongside his clinical work, and always being polite, respectful, extremely reliable, and having a good sense of humour. We are impressed to hear how Dr. Tarfarosh has led a project to develop animated videos for neurodiverse children, which have received national media attention. Dr. Tarfarosh has also worked to complete a postgraduate certificate in clinical research, education, and leadership, and he's working towards an MBA. He's also held many roles representing trainees in the Trust and Deanery and worked to resolve many issues to good effect. Our final finalist in this category is Dr. Chloe Taylor. Dr. Taylor is an ST5 in Older Persons' Mental Health working in Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust. Dr. Taylor was commended for her consistent, high-quality clinical and peer support to enhance patient care, and we were impressed by the significant contributions she's made to local educational and training programs and service provision. Dr. Taylor has run a QI project looking at response to mental health symptoms in care homes, which has involved coordinating a number of services to work towards an improved experience for referrers and better clinical outcomes for patients. In addition to her clinical work, Dr. Taylor is also set to complete a medical law and ethics LLM degree. Dr. Taylor also nurtures those who are yet to go into psychiatry and works on improving recruitment. She's founded and has worked for 3 years on the Wessex Psychiatry Summer School and offers peer support and mentorship to foundation year doctors. So the winner of the Hire Trainee of the Year 2022 category is Dr. Chloe Taylor of Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust. So I'll now hand back over to Chiara for the following category.
Right, so we're on to Trainee Peer of the Year. So this award is open to any psychiatric trainee or foundation doctor who has excelled in the support and care of colleagues and peers at local, regional, or national level. All those nominated demonstrated exceptional compassion towards others, dedicating their time and energy to fostering all around them, a real gift. As judges, we were impressed with the diversity of activities and commitment demonstrated by all, and our profession is all the richer for these individuals. We have 2 finalists in this category. In alphabetical order, our finalists are Dr. Riccardo De Giorgi. Dr. De Giorgi is a specialist registrar and Wellcome Trust doctoral training fellow based at Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust and serves as the peer representative to numerous local, national, and indeed international panels. Nominated particularly for his exceptional care for his colleagues across all levels, he has fostered trainees to engage with research via his leadership and improvements to regional journal clubs, teaching critical appraisal and research methodology to others, and was commended particularly for his willingness to freely give his time to support others, including offering pastoral support. With the pressures and isolations of lockdown, Dr. De Giorgi developed an active and supportive network amongst regional clinicians and researchers, including social activities for colleagues, just to breathe a little lighter. He demonstrated a care and outreach across multiple levels of practice to really support his peers to thrive. And then Dr. Shah Tarafrosh. Dr. Tarafrosh is an ST4 specialist registrar based in Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust and an honorary teaching fellow at the University of Oxford. His application demonstrated evident care and compassion for his peers in learning, training, pastoral care, social engagement, and representation of needs to senior staff and wider systems via multiple committee posts. He engaged with the teaching of junior colleagues to ensure our specialty continues to thrive and ensured our staff are protected, resolving difficulties with pressured rotas, inductions, and leave clashes, particularly during the pandemic when these difficulties were compounded. He organised an international conference with the intent to integrate neuroscientific ideas and research into wider practice and to foster these ideas amongst others. The award of South Eastern Division Trainee Peer of the Year 2022 goes to Dr. DeGiorgi of Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust. And then the last that I have to read before I hand back to Sophie in a little bit is Trainee Innovator of the Year. So this award reflects the psychiatric trainee of any level who has contributed to and innovated on the systems and practices in their local area, whether in formal leadership, creative teaching, bold outreach, or the shaping of clinical practice in service of our patients. All our nominees were simply exceptional in their dedication to the evolution of our field. And the judges were particularly impressed by these trainees meeting the challenges of the pandemic and reaching into our increasingly disparate and complex settings, often via precisely this innovation. We have 3 finalists in this category. In alphabetical order, our finalists are Dr. Alexandra Patrick. Dr. Patrick is an ST4 specialist registrar based with Oxford Health Foundation Trust, recognised particularly for his innovative approach to medical education via virtual reality and scenario-based interactive cases. His work offered an opportunity for experiential learning and with potential applications far beyond clinical staff. His scenarios have incorporated reflections on the value of diversity in clinical practice, including to enhance the impacts of differential attainment of minorities and racism awareness amongst trainees. It was noted in his nomination particularly that it had been a privilege and a delight to witness his development as a young psychiatrist, and that he demonstrated truly exceptional attributes as a clinician and a leader. Dr. Emma New. Dr. New is a core trainee based at Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust, nominated for her exemplary clinical care, engaging teaching, and impactful quality improvement activity. In the past 2 years, Dr. New has single-handedly led improvement projects to revolutionise handovers focused on the needs of trainees and the safety of her patients. She's engaged in innovative teaching activity, including the support of clinicians new to the area, and her dedication and care was certainly evident in her nomination. And finally, Dr. Shah Tarafrosh. Dr. Tarafrosh is an ST4 specialist registrar based in Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust, with an impressive record of innovation during the year of 2021, a year marked by the pandemic. During this time, he developed a number of quality improvement projects, including a series of animations portraying the real-life experiences of children, young people, and families utilising services for neurodevelopmental conditions, and was interviewed by the BBC, amongst others, for this work. Alongside engagement and representation of his peers, he developed rest spaces for his colleagues and continued engagement with innovative research, including through his teaching activity. The award of South Eastern Division Trainee Innovator of the Year 2022 goes to Dr. Shah Tarafrosh of Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. To receive this award from such an organization which I admire so much, it's really makes me happy and grateful. Thank you very much.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. And on that note, I will pass over to Sophie.
Thanks, Chiara. So the final category we've got to announce tonight is Psychiatric Educator. And we were completely overwhelmed by nominations in this category, which is a real testament to the excellent trainers we're lucky to have in the region, and also to the gratitude demonstrated by trainees for the educators who've prioritised the education of trainees, even when services have been stretched and the whole world in flux. I'd love to be able to showcase all of the nominees, as there was such a remarkable diversity of excellent training described in the nominations. But our final 3 nominees were in alphabetical order. Dr. Raj Atavar. Dr. Atavar is the Training Programme Director and Consultant Psychiatrist working in Hertfordshire Partnership NHS Foundation Trust. Dr. Atavar was nominated for his long-standing commitment to training, both locally and further afield in the division. Dr. Atavar was particularly key in supporting trainee wellbeing through the pandemic by running Behrman groups and wellbeing days. Personal communication from a previous trainee thanked Dr. Atavar for being one of the best mentors I've ever had and extolled him for clearly, truly caring about trainees and being clear about how to achieve the challenging balance between clinical duty and protecting the educational process, something which has been a challenge for all of us, particularly over the pandemic. At a divisional level, he works to run workshops for Mental Health Act training and chairs the Stay Well programme, both of which receive excellent feedback, as well as working as the mentoring lead for the division. Our next finalist is Dr. Kavitha Babu. Dr. Babu is an associate professor and honorary consultant in old age psychiatry in Wessex. In her role as training programme director for old age psychiatry, Dr. Babu was commended for the dramatic improvements in the training programme to the extent that the training scheme is now oversubscribed and full of high quality committed trainees. One of her initiatives has been an innovative setup where trainees co-lead academic sessions with their educational supervisors. These have been well received by trainees and supervisors alike. Dr. Babu has supported trainees on an individual basis prior to and during the pandemic. This has even involved providing emergency childcare herself so that a trainee did not miss an educational opportunity. Her nominator reported that she is loved by all trainees who wrote through her clinical workplace, not least as she leads a stable and high-functioning clinical team that provides excellent training opportunities to develop clinical skills. Our final finalist for the category is Dr. James Fallon. Dr. James Fallon is a clinical senior lecturer in medical education, honorary consultant psychiatrist and deputy director of medical education working across Sussex Partnership NHS Foundation Trust and Brighton and Sussex Medical School. Dr. Fallon has worked hard to expand undergraduate and postgraduate training, as well as developing specific educational roles for core and higher trainees in order to support the development of future senior educators. Dr. Fallon responded quickly to the pandemic and developed an online training program, which was so successful that 80% of the cohort felt that the online offering was preferable to returning to face-to-face teaching. Dr. Fallon has also sought to improve well-being of trainees by integrating well-being into the curriculum and appointing a well-being lead for psychiatry trainees and normalising reflective practice by delivering valent groups for all undergraduate trainees. Dr. Fallon has presented his ideas on delivering effective online training at international conferences, including at Congress last year, which I personally attended his session and found it incredibly inspirational. Dr. Fallon is also a trustee for the Association of University Teaching of Psychiatry and is working to develop national resources for the teaching of psychiatry to medical students. As well as these high impact projects, the trainee nominating Dr. Fallon was keen to spell out how supportive he'd been on an individual level and his dedication to tailoring training needs to individual circumstances. So the winner of the South East Division Psychiatric Educator of the Year is awarded to Dr. James Fallon of Sussex Partnership NHS Foundation Trust and Brighton and Sussex Medical School. Many congratulations.
Thank you so much for that, and it's an absolute honour to have been nominated, let alone awarded here. And I think the only thing that I can do is offer up my huge thanks to the students and the trainees who in truth deliver most of our teaching, who do most of the education that we do, and are the most fantastic resource that we've got. And in winning this, it's my sense that actually it should go to our fantastic trainees, including Dr. Everson, who was kind enough to nominate me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that brings us towards the end of our session today, and we're so pleased to be able to set up these awards for South East Division trainees, and obviously with a nod to all the all-important trainers too for this year. We're very much aware that we've all had a highly taxing few years, and these awards demonstrate how local trainees have flourished in adversity and in many cases gone above and beyond an already crippling workload to better the care for their patients and the experience and training of their colleagues. The snippets we've heard from applications this evening has been utterly inspiring, and I hope these will fuel further excellence and innovation amongst division trainees. However, these awards could not have gone ahead without the support of the South East Division Executive Committee. And we're very grateful for all the support we've received. And we're also completely indebted to Karen Morgan and Chesney Munros, who have worked tirelessly over the last few months to set everything up and coordinate applications, and are running this whole event behind the scenes, pinning you all and silencing you as required. So thank you so much for all your hard work. I'd also like to add a special thank you to Peter Markham, who's the head of digital at the college. He's not only helped us to promote the event, but has kindly given up his evening to assist us with ensuring recognition of all the winners through Twitter. He's created the fantastic digital awards you will see on the Southeastern Twitter page, if you can go that way. And all I can say is they are amazing. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank Professor Subodh Dave for kindly opening our inaugural event, and our judges for their hard work. Dr. Raj Atavar, Dr. Hisham El-Nazer, Dr. Osama Hammer, and Dr. Vijay Delafon. Finally, thank you to everyone who's submitted an application or supported a nomination and attended tonight. It's really helped us to highlight and acknowledge the excellent work done by trainees and trainers in the division. We really hope that these awards will continue and be a way of formally recognising the hard work of trainees and a platform for sharing innovation across the region. And so thank you all so much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you all again next year.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, as Sophie said, hopefully next year again. And thank you all for giving up your evenings. Many congratulations to everyone for nominations and for awards. And let's keep this ball rolling.